Good morning, church. If we haven't met before, my name is Chizi, and I'm, like Fernando said, I'm one of the student leaders here. I also coordinate our 5 p.m. service. And if you haven't been to our 5 p.m. service yet, I really encourage you to come. We've been having so much fun, and God has moved so powerfully through that service, and everyone is welcome. But this morning, it's so good to be with you all to continue our series on how to lead like Jesus through the book of John. And just to give you a bit of context as to why we're looking at this series, it's because at Christ Church Peckham, we truly believe that every single person in this room and in our congregation has been called to be a leader. And we really want to equip you with the skills that you need to lead like Jesus and to lead where you are. So if you haven't already bought your ticket, I really do encourage you to come. It's going to be a great day of learning from some of the world's most influential leaders, as well as some of the leaders within our own congregation. Last week in our series, we looked at how to lead with honor through Jesus' interaction with the woman at the well. We learned how to lead with honor requires us to see, believe, and draw out the best in others. But today I want to talk to you about how to lead with heart. So I've named this talk, Lead with Love. Say to the person next to you, lead with love. Today, we're going to look at how leading with love will radically change us, impact our culture, and influence the world. We're going to look at how when we're leading with love, we are honoring God's second greatest commandment, which is to love your neighbor as yourself. And I wonder what springs to mind when you think about a leader. I wonder what attributes you think are good for leadership. Perhaps love is at the bottom of the list, or not on the list at all. I wonder if there are people here today who disqualify themselves when we talk about leadership. And I wonder if people are perhaps a bit intimidated by the word. I'm the oldest daughter of 2 younger sisters, and when I was growing up, I loved being the oldest because I thought it meant I could just boss my sisters around, and I had the authority to, just tell them what to do, so much so that I would act like the third parent. But my sisters got really bored of this, and they really hated that I bossed them around, so much so that they started to exclude me from playing with them. So they'd often go off and play games with each other, and I'd be left on my own. I know, so sad. Until one day, my parents taught me that if I wanted to play with my sisters, I had to learn how to lead with love. I had to stop bossing them around, telling them what to do. I had to be more gentle and more kind with how I approach things. And, since I've learned how to lead with love, our relationship is better than ever. We have so much more unity. We love being in each other's company. And my sisters even come to me for advice, which really, really warms my heart. At Christ Church Peckham, we define a leader as someone who follows Jesus and inspires others to follow him as well. So if you follow Jesus, guess what? You're a leader. And as Jesus' followers, by definition, we are servants of the Lord. So therefore, leadership in the biblical context is much different to how the world views leadership. It requires service. I heard it said this week that if service is beneath you, then leadership is beyond you. As followers of Jesus, we lead by serving others. And as his followers, Jesus has given us the great commission to go and make disciples of all nations. So to do that, we must be willing to accept the call and to lead where we are. And I really want to encourage you today that if you don't see yourself as a leader, if you have the ability to love, then you have the ability to lead. In today's passage, we see how Jesus teaches his disciples to lead with love. In John chapter 13, verses 31 to 35, Jesus is talking to his disciples the night before his betrayal. Let's read these verses together. The words will be on the screen, but there's also Bibles in the seats in front of you. Jesus said, "Now the Son of Man is glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will glorify the Son himself and glorify him at once. My children, I will only be with you a little longer. You will look for me, and just as I told the Jews, so I tell you now, where I am going, you cannot come. A new command I give you, love one another as I have loved you. so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. In this passage, we see that Jesus has given his disciples a new commandment, and it was his final teaching to them before he was betrayed. So he wasn't going to tell them something that wasn't really important. You may be wondering, what's new about this commandment? Didn't Moses say in the Old Testament, love your neighbor as yourself? These two commandments are very different. The first is pretty standard. Love your neighbor as much as you love yourself. However, Jesus raises the bar. He commands us to love others as much as he has loved us. This means that Jesus commands us to love others even more than we love ourselves. And let me be real with you, church. This type of love isn't easy. Loving others more than we love ourselves requires sacrifice. Leading with love will require us to lead others will require us to lead like Jesus by laying down our lives for others. Leading with love will require us to put the needs of others before our own. It will require us to sacrifice our time, our resources, and our own personal comfort. Leading with love is a selfless love that is shown through our actions. And I believe that this type of love will radically change us and our world if we all accept that it will cost us something to truly live it out. So how do we do it? What does it mean practically to lead with love? Which brings me to my first point, on how to lead with love is heal your heart. In order for us to become the leaders that God has called us to be, we must first heal and protect our hearts. Our hearts are integral to our being, both spiritually and physically. Therefore, it's important for us to have healed hearts. In Proverbs chapter 4, verses 23, it says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." The word guard doesn't mean to put a wall around our hearts. It means that we need to protect our hearts because everything flows from it. We must also protect our minds because our hearts and our minds are connected. And if we give anything and anyone access to them, then what we allow in, we will become. So if we allow pride, selfishness, and self-righteousness into our hearts, we will be prideful, selfish, and self-righteous leaders. When we allow these negative feelings to seep into our hearts, it impacts how we interact with others and ultimately how we lead. So therefore, we must do the inner work of healing and strive to be healed so we can lead from a place of love. Now, I understand that all of us have probably experienced something that has hurt us at some point. You know, maybe someone's let you down, someone's disappointed you. But can I encourage you today that brokenness is a season, not a destination? If you broke your arm, you'd wear a cast, but you wouldn't wear that cast forever. So we should apply the same logic when it comes to our hearts. There has to be a time to take the cast off. And I really believe today that God wants to encourage you to take that cast off. Last year, I went through a breakup, which completely blindsided me and broke my heart. I genuinely thought that I was going to marry this person. You know, we'd made so many plans for our future, and I thought we were really, really in love. And one random Saturday, they just broke up with me. And I was completely and utterly broken. But I knew that I couldn't stay broken. I knew that I had to pick myself up and rebuild my life. And now looking back, that breakup was the best thing that ever happened to me because it forced me to seek community. So I joined first Nicholas and Catherine's Connect group, then Lydia and Alani's Connect group, which led me to join this church. And since I've joined this church, my faith has gone from strength to strength, and God has really healed my heart. But if I'd stayed in that place of heartbreak, I wouldn't have stepped into the calling that God has placed on my life. I wouldn't have stepped into leadership. And now that God has done that inner work of healing in me, I can now lead from a place of love, and I can encourage others to do the same. When we've been hurt, it's natural for us to put a wall around our hearts. and we think that we're protecting ourselves, but those walls just keep us from trusting and loving again. Yet often healing comes from doing the very opposite of what our pain is telling us to do. Healing comes when we choose to forgive, to open our hearts, and to love again. And no matter your past experiences, no matter how deeply you've been hurt, believe that God can bring you healing. As he brings you healing, he can also use you to bring healing to those around you. And when we allow Jesus into our hearts, he transforms us. And now I completely understand that healing isn't linear. It's a lifetime journey. But can I encourage you today to start that journey of healing? Yeah. Everyone's healing journey will look different. But I think a really good place to start is to seek God through his word and in prayer. And also to find a community that can come alongside you and walk with you through your pain. Yeah. And for some of us, we may need additional support, and we might need to do therapy and counselling. And I really encourage you to do that if that's what you need. At Christ Church Peckham, we want to see as many people as possible believe in Jesus, become whole, and build his kingdom. So if there's anything that we can do to support you on your healing journey, please do let us know. Healing our hearts and becoming whole will help us all to lead with love. Which brings me to my second point on how to lead with love, which is watch your words. Say to the person next to you, watch your words. Clock that too. To lead with love, we really need to watch our words. As leaders, this is so important because words are a window to our hearts. So if our hearts are corrupt, then our words will also be corrupt. And that's why it's so important for us all to do that inner work of healing. In Proverbs chapter 18, verse 21, it says, life and death are in the power of the tongue. Our words are powerful tools that either build people up or destroy them. I remember when I was in primary school, I was around 8 years old, I was on the school council, and my teacher at the time was just so encouraging. And to this day, I'll never forget what she said to me. She said, Chizi, you are such a brilliant leader. Do you know that you could be our Prime Minister one day? Her words were just so encouraging, and they just really motivated me and inspired me. And at the time, I was the only black child in my primary school, so her words carried extra weight. And even though that I haven't pursued a career in politics, what she said to me instilled self-confidence and self-belief, which has stayed with me into adulthood. Jesus always spoke life to those around him. Even on this night of his betrayal, when he's given the disciples this new commandment to love one another, he is speaking life into them. And no matter what situation we find ourselves in, whether we've been hurt, whether we've been wronged, as leaders, we must strive to lead like Jesus and lead with love. We must imitate Jesus by speaking life-giving words to ourselves and to those around us. In Matthew chapter 12, verses 34 to 37, it says, for the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. A good man brings good things out of the good stored up in him, and an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in him. But I tell you, everyone will have to give an account on the day of judgment for every empty word they've spoken. For by your words you will be acquitted, and by your words you'll be condemned. Our words really reveal what's on our heart. So if there's anything in our heart like envy, pride, or lies, that will be revealed in our words. And the Bible is very, very clear that we will be condemned by our words. I heard it said this week that immature leaders speak on accident and mature leaders speak on purpose. So our words must always have purpose, because what we say has the power to bless, encourage, and heal those around us. And I just wonder what our world would look like if each and every one of us spoke to use our words, decided to use our words to speak life to those around us. I wonder what it would look like if as leaders, we gave more affirmations than corrections to the people that we influence. Our world is so quick to judge, condemn, and rebuke people. How can we as leaders be countercultural by leading with love? How can we use our words to show love by encouraging one another and building each other up? Wherever we are, whether we're in church, at work, at university, or at school, let's strive to be the most encouraging person in the room. Let's strive to be the person who's always going above and beyond to go the extra mile to show love through the words that we speak. When we do this, we imitate the heart of Christ by leading with love. Which brings me to my final point on how to lead with love, which is forgive your foes. Say to the person next to you, forgive your foes. Forgiveness is really key to leading with love. Unforgiveness is another thing that if we let it stay in our hearts, it will really flow out of how we speak and interact with others. The enemy loves to use offense as a trap to bring disunity. And as leaders, we must fight for unity. Because when there's unity in a relationship, in a team, or in a church, anything is possible. And again, Jesus sets the standard for forgiveness. In Matthew chapter 18, verses 21 to 22, when Peter asks, Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? Up to 7 times? Jesus said, I tell you, not 7 times, but 77 times. Now, this wasn't a strict rule that we should only forgive 77 times, but it shows us that there shouldn't be any limits to our forgiveness. As leaders, we should be quick to forgive. If our heart is full of unforgiveness and bitterness, it's a route for the enemy to get a stronghold in our lives. Unforgiveness creates a wedge between us and God. And if we don't forgive the people who have hurt us, we can never really love them because we will always be looking for revenge without even realizing it. We will always just keep reliving the experience until we fully forgive them. After Jesus said to his disciples, a new command I give to you, love one another, he demonstrated that love by dying for us on the cross. Love was the only reason why Jesus went to that cross. And he made it possible for all of us to be forgiven. And now I really understand that forgiving people isn't easy, especially when we've really been hurt. But forgiveness will always require us to suffer a little. And if we're not suffering, then we're not forgiving. Forgiveness will always cost us something because it cost Jesus everything to die for our sins. And Tim Keller put it like this: forgiveness then is a form of voluntary suffering. In forgiving, rather than retaliating, you make a choice to bear the cost. And I just really want to encourage you that if this is the level of forgiveness that Jesus has given us, how can we withhold forgiveness from those around us? Last week, as we looked at the story of the woman at the well, I was reminded of another woman in the Bible. I was reminded of Mary, the woman who knelt by Jesus' feet and poured out that expensive oil to really worship him. And there's just so much significance in that story, but what really stands out for me is Jesus' response to Judas, who complained that the oil was being wasted and the oil could have been sold and, the money used could have been given to the poor, because this oil was about worth like a year's worth of wages. So it was really expensive and worth quite a lot back in those days. And Jesus just simply says, her many sins have been forgiven as her great love has shown. But whoever has been forgiven little loves little. And what Jesus is saying is that a person who recognizes how much they've been forgiven loves God and others more deeply. Therefore, we love and worship to the level that we believe that we have been forgiven. And when we are tempted to withhold forgiveness from others, we need to be reminded where we have come from and what Jesus has saved us from. As leaders, we must love much because we have been forgiven much. We should be known as people who forgive quickly, but also as people who say sorry quickly. And we are human. By nature, we're going to fall, we're going to mess up, we're going to get things wrong, but there's grace for that. And as we've received grace from God, we should also extend that same grace to others. Grace and love should always be our first response. And I just wonder if there are people that spring to mind today that when we talk about forgiveness. I wonder if there are people who have hurt you that you still need to forgive. Can I encourage you today, don't let unforgiveness sit in your heart. If you let unforgiveness sit in your heart, you won't be able to fully step into the calling that God has placed on your life. You won't be able to lead with love. So can I really encourage you to forgive that person or forgive that situation so you can step into the calling that God has placed on your life? Forgive as you have been forgiven so that you can lead with love. So church, I want to ask you today, are you ready to lead with love? Are you ready to heal your heart, to watch your words, and to forgive your foes? Leading with love is countercultural, but so is Jesus. What would our world look like if we lead with love? What impact would it have on those around us? And what impact would it have on us? Can you stand if you're able to pray?